Milan as a place where stories settle, not because something happened there, but because people remember something was there. Before legends had names, before monsters had faces, there were places where fear learned how to speak. This series is not about what is true, it's about what was believed long enough to become real. Across centuries and countries, people told stories to explain war, diseases, vanity, hunger, grief, and even death. Over time, these stories hardened into legends. Each episode you'll hear was born in a specific place at a specific moment in history, shaped by the fears of the people who lived there. They were told by firelight, whispered to children, written down when fear learned how to read. Listen carefully, because legends survive not by proof, but by repetition. Sleepy Hollow was a small Dutch settlement in what is now New York State. In the late 1700s, it was quiet, rural, and deeply superstitious. People believed the land itself encouraged dreaming, a place where imagination slipped easily into waking life. During the American Revolutionary War, the region saw skirmishes, patrols, and sudden death. Soldiers were buried quickly, sometimes improperly, sometimes not at all. One such death lingered in memory. Villagers spoke of an Asian soldier, mercenary fighting for the British, who lost his head to a cannonball. His body was buried, but the head was never recovered. At first the story was practical. They say his spirit returned because he had not been laid to rest correctly. Because war does not always end cleanly. Because the dead deserve closure. People claim to hear a horse at night. Others say they saw a rider moving through the fog where no road should be. Each telling added a detail. The horse gained speed, the rider gained purpose. The absence of the head became a symbol rather than a fact. Parents warned children not to wander at night. Farmers avoid the roads after sunset. Fear settled into routine. Then, in 1820, Washington Irving wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. He took a local ghost story and shaped it into literature. He gave it atmosphere, characters, and an ending that raised more questions than answers. Was the horseman real? Or was he a story used to frighten a superstitious school teacher named Ichabod Crane? Irving never answered, and that was the genius of it. Because uncertainty allowed the legend to survive, the horseman became more than a ghost. It became a reminder that war leaves things unfinished, and that imagination can sharpen fear better than any weapon. And to this day, when autumn settles and fog thickens, the road through Sleepy Hollow still feels watched. Because legends do not need proof, they only need a memory. For there was a vampire. There was a prince. His name was Vlad, ruler of Wallachia, a land trapped between powerful empires. where invasion was constant and mercy was seen as weakness. Vlad ruled in the 15th century. His enemies feared him long before legends did. He punished betrayal publicly, brutally, and without apology. His preferred method was the stake. Men were impaled and left to die slowly, their bodies lining the roads as warnings. Forests of the dead surrounded his cities. Travelers spoke of the smell before they spoke of the sight. This was not a myth. This was history. After his death, the stories did not stop. In the villages of Romania, people already believed in the Strigoi, restless dead who rose from the grave to drain the living. When animals avoided certain burial sites, when bodies seemed not to decay, fear found a familiar shape. They whisper that Vlad had returned, that his cruelty had anchored his soul to the earth, that a man who fed so eagerly on terror could not truly die. Centuries later, these fears reached the ears of a writer named Bram Stoker. Stoker took the name Dracula, the folklore of the Strigoi, and the memory of a merciless ruler, and turned them into a single figure. A count, a castle, a creature that fed on blood to survive time itself. The world remembers the fangs, but the true horror of Dracula is simpler. It is the fear that some men are so violent, so unforgettable, that death refuses to give them. And so Dracula lives, not because he drinks blood, but because history still remembers his name. Before she was a ghost, she was a woman. In the 16th century, Mexico was a land torn apart. The Spanish conquest had brought war, disease, and the collapse of entire worlds. Families were broken, children were lost, grief became ordinary. Women bore the weight of their grief in silence. Stories began to spread of a woman seen near rivers and lakes, dressed in white, crying through the night. At first, these were not ghost stories. They were warnings. Children went missing near water. Accidents were common. Desperation drove some mothers to unthinkable acts. Guilt followed like a shadow. Over time, these tragedies blended into one figure. She became La Llorona, the weeping lady. In the legend, she drowned her children and was condemned to wander forever, searching for them. Her cry echoed through villages. Parents told the story to keep children close to home. Communities used it to explain laws that had no justice. The Spanish later shaped the tale further, turning her into a symbol of sin and punishment. But beneath the moral lesson, something older remained. La Llorona was not created to frighten. She was created to remember. She carried the grief of mothers who had no voice, of children lost to water, war, and history itself. Even today, people say her cry is heard near rivers at night, not as a threat, but as a warning wrapped in sorrow. Because some legends are not born from evil, they are born from pain. Elizabeth Bathory was born in 1560 into one of the most powerful noble families in the Kingdom of Hungary. From childhood, she lived surrounded by wealth, education, and authority. Her name carried protection. Her status placed her above most consequences. Violence was not hidden in her rule. Public punishment was common. Cruelty was considered discipline. Power was enforced through fear. Elizabeth married young, as is expected. When her husband left for war, she was left in control of vast estates. Hundreds of servants lived under her command. And slowly, people began to notice something strange. Young servant girls were sent to the castle and did not return. At first, their absence was explained away. Illness, dismissal, relocation. Questioning a noble woman was dangerous. But the disappearances continued. Villages nearby began to whisper. Too many girls vanished. Too many families waited without answers. By the early 17th century, witnesses began to speak. Former servants described beatings, confinement, and deaths hidden behind castle walls. Bodies were said to be buried in secret and thrown into rivers. The accusations grew darker. Elizabeth was said to believe that bathing in the blood of young girls could preserve her youth. Whether this was true or exaggeration, or fear shaped into legend, remains debated. What is certain is this: people die. In 1610, an investigation was finally ordered, not out of compassion, but because the scandal threatened the nobility itself. Dozens of testimonies were collected. Some spoke of dozens of victims. Others claimed hundreds. The true number remains unknown. Elizabeth Bathory was never publicly tried. She was too powerful. Instead, she was sealed inside her own castle. Her windows were blocked. Her doors were closed. She lived in prison in silence for 4 years, until her death in 1640. After her death, the facts blur. Numbers grew, details sharpened. Fear filled the silence left behind. Elizabeth Bathory became the Blood Countess, a figure standing between history and myth. Some call her the origin of vampire legends. Others see her as a convenient monster created to protect greater powers. But behind the legend, a truth remains. People disappear, and history listen too late. In the year 1284, something happened in the town of Hamelin, Germany, and the town never forgot it. Hamelin was a small medieval settlement where life followed strict order and faith explained what reason could not. When tragedy came, it demanded a meaning. According to the town records, not legend, documentation, on June 26, 1284, the children of Hamelin disappeared. Dozens of them. The earliest account make no mention of rats or magic. It simply says, it is exactly 100 years since our children left. The story came later. A stranger arrives dressed in bright colors, carrying a pipe. Hamelin, plagued by rats, promises him payment to rid the town of them. When he succeeds, the town refuses to pay. The piper plays again. This time the children follow. They dance to the streets beyond the town gates, into the hills. They never return. Historians believe the rats were added centuries later. The truth may have been disease, migration, colonization, or death. Explanations too painful to accept. The children were real. Their absence was real. Stained glass windows in Hamelin still mark the streets where music was forbidden, out of respect for the loss. Over time, grief became a lesson, loss became legend, and tragedy turned into a warning about broken promises. The Pied Piper is not a fairy tale. It is a memory dressed in color, and in the hollow of stories, it reminds us that when reality leaves silence behind, superstitions fills it with songs.